So, what if success didn't always look like achieving more, but knowing when to step back? Interesting, right? So, welcome back to Voices of Impact, the space where we explore leadership, legacy, and the courageous decisions that shape meaningful lives and lasting impact. Today's conversation challenges one of the most celebrated narratives in our culture. So, that success always is about climbing higher, achieving more, and never slowing down. And that's what I thought, right? So, lived experience. Because what happens when you're already reached the top? Right? What happens when you checked every box, exceeded every expectation, and achieved what many spent a lifetime pursuing? So, my guest today knows that question intimately. So I'm honored to welcome Ashley Varnado to the show. Ashley is a wealth management executive, strategist, and philanthropic leader who spent nearly 2 decades leading at the highest levels of corporate finance. As a former managing director, she oversaw multi-billion-dollar portfolios, led national teams, advised high net worth families, and built an extraordinary career defined by excellence, achievement, and impact. But perhaps her most courageous leadership decision wasn't building success. It was actually choosing to pause. And we're going to talk about what that looks like. Today, Ashley's embracing what she calls a radical sabbatical, an intentional season of reflection, restoration, and reinvention. A season of asking deeper questions about identity, fulfillment, what is true wealth, true freedom, what does that feel like? What does that look like? Because sometimes the next level isn't another promotion. It's just creating space to rediscover who you are beyond that title. So it makes this conversation especially aligned is what we both believe in, that success without alignment eventually becomes unsustainable. And wealth is about more than accumulation. It's really about the freedom that we have and the fulfillment. So in today's conversation, we'll explore the hidden costs of high achievement, the courage required to redefine success, and what becomes possible when we stop asking what's next and start asking what truly matters. So, Ashley, so honored to have you. Welcome to Voices of Impact.
Thank you, Vina. I am so excited to be here with you. Listen, I have been looking forward to this conversation for a while. I'm a huge, huge fan of the incredible work that you're doing in engineering. And so I am excited to dig right into all the details.
Amazing. So excited to have you and thanks for what you're doing. Let's dive in. So Ashley, before the titles, success and executive leadership roles, who were you truly growing up and what shaped your ambition?
Who was I growing up? I think before I decided that I wanted to pursue a career in corporate and I had all of these big city dreams. I call one of the chapters in my book Small Town Girl, Big City Dreams. But before I had all these big city dreams, I really wanted to pursue the arts. I was an artsy girl. I did lots of singing, I did lots of performing, etc. And that allowed me the freedom to really express myself in ways that later in life I didn't necessarily have the opportunity to. And so I find myself on this radical sabbatical, which I know we'll get into, really leaning back into the arts. And I'm having so much fun with it. I was never a really good painter, but I pride myself on trying to learn to paint. I am classically trained as a musician. My dad is a skilled musician as well, very musical family. And so I get an opportunity to lead the youth choir at our church. I'm the directress for our youth choir, and that's been where I've really leaned back into the creative aspects of my personality. And let me not, discount the ways that I came up with creativity, even in my big city dreams. I would always come through with some type of scarf or some type of creative measure that expressed who I was or what I was feeling that day. But I certainly was more of a very joyful, gleeful, probably annoying little sister to my siblings because I always had some machine, some instrument, or some song in the background. And I certainly had my eyes set on Broadway. I'm a far cry from Broadway today, but certainly that was my dream before entering into the corporate space.
Wow, I love this. And I love like how you lit up when you said that. And you see, we're going to dive into the success part, but who truly really are at the core is such a creative woman I see, and I can relate to a lot of things you said. And because we don't really talk about those things often, right? We show like the sides of like, hey, we're an executive, we achieved this, we went to the top. But I always ask this question to people, but outside of those things, what do you like to do? Who are you? And I love how you said the creative piece. And you're really embracing that. And, a lot of women these days, like, they tend to kind of just forget to slow down and tap into their creativity. And I was one of those people, right, in the past couple of 10 years. And I'm also classically trained, but in a more Indian way. In classical Indian. I also do a lot of painting and drawing. So that's amazing that you do all of that. So I think it's going to be a very good conversation. I'm already excited, but thank you for sharing that side to you. And
Absolutely.
it's very important to embrace both sides. The feminine side of you, embrace the creativity side of you, and also, of course, the ambitious side. So I love all of that. So thank you so much for sharing. And you mentioned you became one of the youngest African American managing director. So kudos to you for that in your industry. What did that accomplishment mean to you at the time?
You know, one it was certainly not an easy feat. Just to take a few steps back, I'm a first generation corporate executive. I was the first in my family to make the decision to pursue a corporate lifestyle. There were several folks who certainly leaned a little bit more blue collar, but it was me as the first, and that is certainly the result of so many people pouring into me. It's the premise of my book, Out of the Yazoo Clay. I am quite literally the beneficiary of philanthropy and encouragement and love. And so that's why I find it so important to pour back now, especially into our youth. And so being the first, it was really important for me to go all the way, right? I certainly didn't become CEO of any company, but my eyes were set on becoming a managing director. And it quite literally felt like validation, if I could call out one word. It was validation that all of the hard work that I had put in and all the things that so many people had poured into me meant something. And it's interesting, Vina, how we distill down our worth to titles, right? Even saying this aloud, having
Right.
a little bit of stomach sickness because I'm like, your entire life's work was about becoming a managing director. But for me at the time, it was really important to validate that I, as an African American woman, a woman of color, in an industry where less than 5% of wealth managers actually look like me, had earned the credibility to be called and be honored with that title. And so it was validation for me. It was validation for my parents. I wanted them to know that, again, their work was not in vain. And again, the entire community that worked so tirelessly to build me up to be able to take on a role of this sort. So I worked like hard. I wanted that
Yeah.
title and I got it. But now I understand that my life is so much more
Right.
than titles. And so I'm grateful to now be at that discovery. But at the time, it was very, very important to me to be recognized as a woman of color in the industry with the title as such.
Yeah, amazing. And kudos to you for achieving that. And yeah, it is important, right? And yeah, we call it the validation, we tie it to identity. And at the time, we are at that stage, right? We outgrow those things right now, but I was similar to you, right? And I think we should deserve that. We should be proud. And some people say, like, it's you're tying it to titles. What's that going to mean? Of course, at one stage of your life, and I think a lot of women, especially women of color, as I can relate, being Indian, and we were just taught to shrink all the time. And you spoke your truth, and you came up, and this is my title, and you know you deserve it because you have the capabilities, right? You have the talent. You came up, and I'm glad that you really are proud. I think everyone's proud, So, but at the other end, there's also, like, at that stage, you come to a point where, like, okay, well, I've achieved everything, I've accomplished everything, but why? What does this all mean at the end of the day? And that's what you talked about, identity. And I also, being a go getter, similar to you, it was that validation, I guess, like you said, of I had to prove something to people,
Yes.
that I could do this. And it came from really about the societal conditioning, the family conditioning, that maybe some part of me was not feeling safe or validated. And I thought about it, and that's why I was like, At times it's good, but there's something deeper down there, though, So
Yes.
where is that validation coming from? Does it have to be external? Like, why can't it be internal? And we had to go through all that inner work. And I went through that and I realized, like, titles are nice, but what's more fulfilling is the bigger mission that we have, the bigger picture. So I'll love to go into that. So thank you for sharing your wonderful work that you do. So you spent nearly 2 decades leading at the levels of wealth management. What did that experience teach you about leadership, especially today? Like it's now shifting. We're shifting the paradigm, right? So, what did that experience teach you about like leadership now and influence?
Yeah, no. First, Vina, I don't know if you saw me like nodding so hard. Like everything you said, it's almost like you read my book already, girl. But I cannot wait to sing you a copy. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
We are so aligned on so many topics. Anyway, we'll get into all the things, but I am aligned to everything that you just shared. So, my career was a combination of strategy, spent a great amount of time in finance, the bulk of my career in a finance function, and then later wealth management. But all of those years led me to a very specific leadership model. And Vina, that was very clear. I had experienced quite literally leaders that I truly treasured and wanted to pattern myself after. Like on the other side of any coin, you also experience leadership that you say, okay, these are things I probably would not do. I wanted to create a leadership model, and I think I did that pretty successfully, where it was about the customized development for each individual person. I will tell you that when you get in corporate, and you've experienced this, Vina, there are very cookie cutter steps, right, that you
Right.
take. We talked about titles, right? You become an AVP, then you become a VP,
Right.
SVP, managing director, and then eventually the CEO. But that's not everybody's linear path. Like there are people who love the work that they do. They love the way that they're able to contribute. And they certainly don't want to be pushed into roles that, while they may be phenomenal at them, it may not be truly what they desire. And so I really wanted to make sure that I was leading from a perspective of not only focusing on the individual and their skills, but really leading them holistically and allowing them to develop holistically. I always believe that when you brought your whole self to work and you truly could be yourself, and they saw leaders like myself really lean into who I was, I would regularly talk about my children. It's something I didn't hide. Now, I had to grow into that, Vina. When I talk
Right.
about that in my book too, I had to grow into getting comfortable with myself at work because so often I felt I had to cover. I thought I had to fit in on a one square, and those confines or the confines of that square was as far as I could go. But I wanted people to feel comfortable enough to be themselves and express themselves creatively if needed, so that they could do the work well. People cannot do the work well if they are so busy trying to fit into a prototype or
Exactly.
so busy trying to fit into some box that we gave them, right? And so I wanted to develop the entire leader. I wanted to make sure people felt comfortable because in those places, I noticed that the productivity and honestly the passion for the work and for the client excelled beyond anything, any bonus that I could give them, any pizza party I could give them. I
Right.
wanted people to just come and be themselves. And so I think I embodied that in a real way. And I'm really proud that we've been able to accomplish some really great things. One more thing, Vina, if I could add to that, and I promise I'm moving on from this, but I talk about this quite often, and it led to the decision I made about the radical sabbatical. Far too often, we have leaders who get in their seats and they get very comfortable. And while they believe they're making room for others, they're really occupying a space that could likely be taken on by younger or fresher or in some cases wiser talent. And so I believe in getting out of the way. I want to get out of the way. Listen, I would love to sit somewhere. Well, I say that now, but it would have been easy to sit somewhere, is the better way to say it, for 30 years, 40 years, and to be shuffled across different roles. But what space am I creating for others if I'm occupying the seat? Sometimes, yes, you can create room at the table. And sometimes you have to create room at the table by excusing yourself and giving someone else the opportunity to lead. And so that was a good premise of the radical sabbatical. There was so much talent that I would see that just never had a shot. And removing myself, I think, sometimes gave people the opportunity to lead in ways that they wouldn't have in the past. And so sometimes you just got to get out of the seat. Hashtag get out of the seat and let somebody else sit down. We need to start that movement.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I love what you said. You're so inspiring. Thank you for sharing that journey. And being an executive coach, I was a career coach for so many years and I still am. And, I've talked to a lot of VPs and senior VPs, and they're like, it's just so hard to find a leader like that. I've been in, toxic environments. They don't get it. I have to fit in. And when I see you being that true leader, I'm just very proud of you because it's not easy, right? And you just shifted the whole paradigm of leadership. And, I want to share that out there, whoever's listening, whether you're executives or funding a job or in entrepreneurship, there are a lot of leaders out there like Ashley who are amazing and who are the embodiment of true leadership, authentic leadership. And I love what you said, Ashley, about thriving, right? If you literally help them be feeling seen and heard and really understand who they are, that itself will lead to productivity than like a cookie cutter. I was always in cookie cutter and, honestly, I'm going to say this out loud, but I was fired for speaking up because I wasn't belonging. And to my point, I was like, wait a minute, I think I'm glad I spoke up. It was just not the right environment. So it's very important when you're building, whether a community as an entrepreneur or a team in corporate organization, is to really bring that culture in, is fostering that culture first and understanding what do those people need? What does belonging mean to them? How can I make this person feel seen and heard and be empathetic? And you know how many times I see this and it's still going on about like transactional kind of, work and not collaborative leadership. And I'm so glad that you talked about this and, you excelled at that. So kudos to you. And I just wish, I know you're a role model to a lot of people. So thank you so much, especially in the women of color. A lot of women are struggling to understand, like, hey, how do I speak the truth? How do I speak up? How do I set boundaries? So thank you for sharing all of that. It's very amazing. So, yeah, and I know that we talked about beyond the titles. What is the true definition, would you say, people who are listening, of a true wealthy life? And I've talked to many people, including my own life. We think wealth is about hustling hard and earning money and trying to, work like incredibly like 40 hours and stuff like that. But how would you define true wealth in your words?
Vina, I love this question. Oh my gosh. Thank you for asking this. I talk about this as well pretty often. When I first started my career, because I came from very humble beginnings, I'll share that. I assumed that wealth was the accumulation of awards and titles and assets. It was primarily assets. I wanted to make sure that I could create a life that I could be proud of, where I could help my family as needed. And I've done a great deal of that. But for me, initially, it was about how far can I get up the ladder, right? How much money can I make? And how many assets can I acquire? That was it in a nutshell. And then I learned after acquiring quite a few of those things that that was not the definition of wealth. For me and today, wealth is peace in
Amazing.
one word. It is peace. It is the autonomy to choose, the autonomy to say yes, the autonomy to say no, the autonomy to leverage time the way that I see fit. That became a commodity that I quite honestly did not pay attention to until a few life experiences. But wealth now is the ability to decide how my day is going to go and where I want to pour my energy. Now, that is not to say that that means, wealth can be is primarily you being unemployed and all those things and being on a radical sabbatical. That's not that. I am saying that wealth is spending time in a job or in a role that you love, that you're passionate about, and that is pouring back into you what you pour into others. If you are happy doing the work that you're doing and that creates a sense of wealth for you, kudos to you. That you have found a utopia, a unicorn, right? In a world
Right.
of a lot of people who are making money, but they aren't necessarily
Yeah.
happy with the work that they're doing. I think about the purpose filled work that you're doing, Vina, and the fact that that likely creates a sense of wealth for you. But for me, it is peace right now. It is the metric that nobody talks about. We talk about
Right.
revenue, we talk about growth, we talk about strategy, but nobody talks about the health of our nervous system. If you're doing all those great things at work, but then you are completely frazzled by the time you come home and you have to decompress and you have to heal from your day. I say this all the time. If it's something I got to heal from, I'm not investing my time there because that's no longer attached to what I define as wealth. And I don't care how much money someone wants to pay me, it has to create some meaning of purpose and some meaning of peace for me. And so, yeah, it has completely shifted. I mean, and yeah, it took about 20 years for me to get there. I'm glad I'm here now,
Yeah.
but I certainly define wealth as something that cannot be reduced to assets. It's so much more than that. And Time, I think, is the most important asset that I value at this stage in my life. Hopefully
Yeah.
that makes sense. I know I went deep there, girl, but I love that question.
Yeah. No, I love all your answers and, right on point. And I love how you said peace, right? Because, like, that's the thing that people are missing right now. And, going back to societal thing of definition of wealth and money, I totally agree. That's what we were brought up, right? That's what we were taught that, we have to work hard to get income, work a 9 to 5. This is what wealth is, and I'm not against it, right? Like, we're still looking at like the stock exchange and all of that and assets. And my mom is still like, hey, Vina, like you need to buy a house and a car and this and that. And, all that's great. Of course, everyone deserves that. But at the same time, there's something bigger than that. And like you said, what's so precious is time and peace of mind. And Ashley, just like you hit the nail on the head about, how many people I talk to right now. And yeah, you look on like LinkedIn or social media and it's all happy, go lucky. But at the end of the day, internally, they're just like me and I don't have peace of mind. I'm depressed. It's hard. It's there. I'm going through a lot of stuff right now. And they just don't have the soul. It's like a soul sucking job. And I'm just like, is this, and I asked this question of like, why are you here on earth? Why are you born? Like, what is your purpose? Right. And they were like, I don't know. Right. And that's what true wealth is. And this took me a long time to understand as well. Just like a go getter, I was hustling and grinding and titles, and I got a lot of awards. I was on top of the mountain, Ashley, and I was like, yes, this is what it is. Right. And like, I was in magazines, but then I was like, something's just missing though. And my health was getting affected. And I was like, time is flying and nothing's been happening. And I just don't have that inner peace, right? And like to Ashley's point, that's what true is. And right now, whether you're in corporate, finding a job, and that's why I love what I do as a career coach and now as an entrepreneur to help spiritual entrepreneurs. Like I used to think, like I would ask, I think it was coach asked me and she was like, what's your next goal, Vina? And I was like, I want to hit like, 40K months. It's all about revenue and I'm not there yet. And I'm like, sad, I'm not there yet. And she was like, are you sure you're not there yet? Like you're thriving right now, you're happy. And I'm like, really? Like, is that success? Like, we always have that question where we need to think there is a next level. But what true wealth is just being grateful that you have a healthy body, you have people who are loving you, right? The loved ones around you. You're alive and you're in the present moment and you're in joy. So I love what you said. I'm so glad that you're taking that radical sabbatical. It's so important to integrate and to just slow down because you know how many times that I had to force me to slow down, right? And I know I'm probably talking to a lot of people right now. We need to intentionally do it and not like have to, God gives us like a sickness or God gave me some COVID, I think last 2 years. And then I got that awakening and I was like, oh my God, like, why am I like this? And I always had people tell me, you need to take the rest, right? So, and I think it really comes from that external validation noise that we're so conditioned to
Oh,
hearing, and we need to understand how to overcome those fears, do the inner work. And I love what you said about nervous system regulation. It's a key thing that I got into. And I was like, even today, I was like, there are people who are going to say, like, your business sucks. What are you doing? And I just had to be like, okay, not react. This
yes.
is my thing. This is between me and God, right? And not everyone's going to understand what you're going to be doing. I had this conversation with another lady, and this is between me and the universe, the divine.
Yes.
He's helping me out. I have my soul family, I have my soul sisters, and I'm here. I'm listening to intuition, right? So it's kind of having that, making yourself grounded. But sometimes taking these radical sabbaticals are very important. And Ashley, kudos to you. Thank you so much for doing that and sharing what true wealth is, because this is a conversation that's needed in this world. So,
I'm happy. I'm happy that it's helpful. Listen, you talked about your medical event. I had a really strong wake up call myself in 2025, and it was scary, Vina. It was scary. you think about all the time you've invested into what really boils down. I think you hit the nail on the head, outside validation. And I love the fact that we have access to so much information now. I think back to the days when I was growing up when we were looking at encyclopedias or and had to go to the library to find information. But with that is the other side of the coin, and you even see it on LinkedIn now where there's this competition of who got the promotion the fastest and who got what award. And really, I have backed away from all of that because I used to be in that rat race. Really, why are we doing the things that we're doing? Why do we achieve some of the things that we are set to achieve? And it's really boiling down to we want to be validated by those around us. We want to get the award so we can put it on LinkedIn. We want to get the promotion so that we can show people, right? It's
Right.
not that we want the promotion because when we get it, we're like, oh, this is way too much. But it really boils down to this societal outside validation that has just become a poison. When in reality, it creates this sense of unhealthy ambition where you're continuing to prove points to people who really don't care.
No, they
At the end
don't.
of the day, they don't care, Vina. Like, we're doing all these things so you can put on LinkedIn that I got promoted to managing director. And while people will congratulate you, they're focused on their own worlds.
Exactly.
Why are you worried about proving a point when you've already proven the point? And that's what unhealthy validation is, where I had to grow from that, where now, I realize I am the point. There are no points to prove, right? I am who the universe made me. I am who I'm meant to be. And I'm centered in the fact that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do at this particular time. And so that was a lot of growth and inner work that I had to do because I was one of those ones, girl, who was like, every time I got something, I needed to have this outside validation. Let me put it up so people can see it. And I sat back and
Exactly.
decided, why am I doing this? I'm only going after these things and these promotions because I want people to see it. And if the more people that we can get out of that unhealthy hamster wheel and pattern, I think the better off people will be. Hashtag get out of that unhealthy ambition and that outside
Exactly.
validation. You don't need that. You are the point. You are the point.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, you said everything, like literally. I mean, I used to be the same thing. I think a lot of people are listening or doing the same thing. Clients I've worked with, director, they're like, I need to get to the next thing. It's like some, like you said, rat race. And I'm like, okay, I needed to slow her down, honestly. And I was like, maybe practice some self care. And she's like, no, I really need to get there. I might get fired. I might get laid off. And I'm like, okay, I understand, but we need to be more intentional. And it's hard. It's this hard pill to swallow at times for people because, we're just so used to them. We're conditioned. But that's why we're here today to share that you can still be successful. I mean by successful and thriving and just be by being yourself, right? And a lot of people kept saying that to me that they're like, Nina, it's just your energy and your presence, and your people will find you. And I didn't understand what that meant, right? I was like, because I wasn't taught that, for this 20, 30 years of my life. Even now, like my parents still tell me, like, hey, I think you should go Silicon Valley. Your family's doing this. There's a lot of comparison. And it takes a lot of courage and inner work to be like, no, this is between me and God. This is my mission. This is my purpose. I feel fulfilled, right? This is my soul's thing. And, it takes a lot of bouncing back. And like you said, that nervous system regulation. So on a consistent basis, that we call it the identity crisis, right? The
Mhm.
becoming of knowing who you truly are. And during this time, whoever, a lot of women in my own community are going through that. And they're like, I don't want to hustle to the next thing. Like, yes, part of me is like, I want a client. And then part of them was like, no, I want to refine certain things. We need to be very intentional about understanding not everyone's definition of wealth and success is the same. You have to see what is that for you, right? What's aligned for you. There are many years what I thought, like I said, I was following everyone's path and everyone's bro marketing stuff as an entrepreneur. Um, you know, Go reach out to people, and I was just doing everyone what other people wanted me to do. And then the divine was like, no, I have a different plan. And I think that's what it is, where I was very stubborn to be like, this is the correct path. I need to do this. But you have to be open because, the divine is amazing in the universe and he can bring things to what you want in any form. You don't know the how and you don't know the when. but you have to really surrender and let go and be in the moment, right? Like Ashley said. And it's like, I agree with the LinkedIn. I was on there just because I was a coach, but I was like, even now, actually, before we got on this call, people were reaching out saying, like, hey, like, do you want like this book? Like, I wrote it. Do you want sales? And all that. And I'm just like, okay, no. I can do this, and I'm all about collaboration and it's a competition. And I think that's my next question of I see a lot of coaches who crave for a community, who crave for collaboration, but they're still in that I'm scared to be in that room, because it's so competitive. And at the same time, like I want to take care of my well being. So, how can leaders, coaches, whoever's listening, executives, create lives and organizations where ambition and well being coexist? And, we can cultivate that collaboration rather than competition.
I love it. I love it. Listen, it starts by being completely sure of who you are. And we talked about this, right?
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who are dealing with the definitions of success in different ways, right? They define it differently and they are craving, again, some of that outside validation. Those are people who, still in my mind, and this is just my humble opinion, Vina, they're not ready to collaborate. They're
Yeah.
not ready to collaborate because they are in a place where they will continuously look to their left and right and as opposed to reaching out their hand, right? To say, let me help you. Can you help me? And it's this comparative state that they're caught in. And what I would say is, in order to find collaborations, you have to find people who are already whole already. Like Vina, you strike me as somebody who's done the work. I've
Yeah.
done the inner work, right? There are so many people and so many amazing women. And again, just a sidebar here. One of the unexpected things that came out of this radical sabbatical was that I have had the opportunity to meet so many amazing, grounded, just completely out of this world individuals who have done their inner work, who have healthy boundaries, who have healthy ambition. And that network has really continued to push me toward my own mental, emotional, and physical health. So anyway, just to not doing a sabbatical, I mean, a commercial for anybody to take a radical sabbatical, although we will be talking about that in the next book. But it's been just such a joy to come in contact and experience individuals who are not competitive in the sense where it becomes a two-edged sword. It's competitive in how can we all do this together and how can we uplift a community where other people can feel comfortable to come in here and heal with us, right? And so I think back to my initial point, you have to find people who are healed. In short, like, and you'll be able to tell, you will be able
Right.
to feel the energy of those who are healed versus those who are not. It's in the subtle, questions, or it's in the subtle eye glances, when you're sitting across from them, where you notice that, man, this individual is looking at me as competition. They're not looking at me as a partner. And you'll know that those are not folks who are ready right now. I'm not saying they won't be ready later, but they're not ready today to collaborate. It's about getting in a community of people, in short, that are healed and ready to collaborate and want to create that space for other people. That's one thing that I truly focus on. And that's how we'll create these communities. Like the conversations that you and I are having, the conversation that I've had with so many people where I'm saying, you know what, this person would be phenomenal to work with. And because our energies are healed and are working towards healing, we can create more healing for other people. So I think it starts with, again, just recognizing energy, recognizing when people are healed enough to start collaborations and creating communities, and then recognizing the other side of that, where again, everybody's just not ready. It doesn't mean they won't ever be ready, but they may not be ready at that moment. Hopefully that made sense.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And 1000%, right? 1000%. And this is something like when you're in the healing journey, it's hard to kind of discern. And I've been there because I've been in the place of my own trauma and healing journey. And it was so like scary to kind of be because I never had that sisterhood or I never was part of a healing community. And I come from very like a toxic background. And I always would meet people who are unhealed. And then that would scare me more. And I was like, okay, well, there's no healed people on this planet, right? So during that time, you're going to feel that way. And I also noticed like the more you do your inner work and you heal within yourself first. I love what you said about being whole. It starts from you. right?
Yeah.
We kind of search for like, where is that partner? Where is that healthy relationship? Where is that client or whatever you want? Where's that, whatever partnership you want to do? And at the end of the day, one person, like when I was with my coach and I was in my healing journey, she was like, sometimes some of these things are blessing and a mirror. And she
Yes.
was like, I was talking to my old business partner before and it just didn't work out. And I was like, trying to figure out why didn't this work out? Like, oh my God. And she was like, maybe she's like a mirror. And sometimes you do have to get very honest with yourself of where are you within yourself that you haven't healed yet, because you might attract people who are similar to you. And I was like, okay, I see where that's coming from, which is true. You do sometimes attract people that are similar to you and could be mirrors. And I went through my own mother wound, father wound. Where am I shrinking myself? For a long time, I did not speak up, and I didn't speak up in those rooms. And I was like, and my own friend was like, maybe it's that you need to heal. So I had to go through those wounds and healing. And then the more I did, the more I'm almost done with my healing journey. There's like so many soul sisters that were coming together and we don't compete at all. And it's been like amazing. Like a lot of people, like one lady, she actually asked me to like be part of her podcast in her studio. And I'm just sitting here like, oh my God, really? Like, because we're used to competition. We're all coaches. We're all coaches. We do similar things. But like three of us are career coaches, but we never see it as competition. And even now, like we have a group of like a mastermind group of women, and a lot of us are women of color. And we were talking about these things and they were like, Mina, like, whatever support you need, I'm here for you. Right. And I was like, whatever support you need, I'm here for you. Right. Like, I was just like sending some resources over. And I was like, wow, like, it's just a complete different energy
Yeah.
and frequency, like, very unconditional love. And that unconditional love can only happen when you unconditionally love yourself. And it really came from within. Right. And that was another wound I had, that I was like, why am I not getting or not getting? I mean, why am I not attracting the true souls and the true sisterhood? And it happened in my own like romantic relationships, and I thought I was the problem, right? I was like, maybe I did something wrong, or no one loves me, or something like that. And we always have these things during our healing journey. But at the same time, I was like, wait, I need to go within myself. There's something that I'm doing that I need to figure out. And I started to love myself. I was trying to get external validation from a man. And I was like, why don't I love myself? Why don't I pour it into myself? And I started to like take myself to Ritz Carlton for my birthday. And I was like, I'm the queen here. Like, I'll treat myself, right? And even now, I choose myself. And that was the best decision I made. Like, I don't choose other people, I choose myself. And I attract those people now. So it really comes from, to my point, is the inner work. You do have to be whole within yourselves, and you'll attract people who also value collaboration just like you. And rather than chasing after people, and that's what, of course, my, collective is all about sovereign rise, is magnetizing those opportunities and aligned opportunities to you. So thank you. Ashley.
No, I
Yeah.
love that. Listen, I talk about this in my book, and I, when I was in corporate, would call it my board of directors,
Yeah.
although it had a very different purpose, right? My goal was always to build very authentic relationships with those people. And I think the point that you made was valid. When you recognize that someone no longer serves a purpose on your board, just like you recognize seasons change, have the freedom to hire, promote, fire if you need to, what you need around you, right? And this is more LinkedIn speak, but what you need around you are individuals who challenge you in the right ways, advocate for you when you're not in the room, and will help you develop and grow. It cannot be transactional. So when you were talking about your friend who was like, I want, you to be on my podcast, that's not a transactional thing. Is the alignment of energies, and
Right.
that's the alignment of purpose and goal meeting itself. It's
Exactly.
it's a merge and a fuse of two energies coming together. And so I say that to say this, don't be afraid to cut the cord, right? If you feel those energies don't align and you're already feeling some of that distance, and that was one mistake I think I made in my career. I would hold on to relationships and, try to make them as authentic as I possibly could. But the other side of some of those relationships were only interested in transactional. interactions. One of the things that opened my eyes in this radical sabbatical is the number of people that actually called me after I left and checked on me after it became very clear that I was an asset to them when I was in the seat that I was in. But as I was going through this healing journey, right, the calls slowed down and I got to see
Exactly.
who was truly energetically aligned to me, etc. And so I say that to say, Vina calls it, her soul sisters, etc. I'm in my corporate speak, call it my board of directors. Know that you are the CEO of your board. You're the chairman of your board. And you have the freedom to hire, promote, fire, demote as you see fit. It's about where you are on this healing journey. And so I love that you have found your people. I got to get into this sister circle too,
Yeah.
because listen, if their energy is like yours, girl, I want in. I want in on
I'd
that
love for
because
you
it's
to
just a
be a part of it.
heal.
It's amazing, and we're all part of the country too. Like outside of the U.S., one's in Bali, and I'm just like, oh my god, like the universe is bringing us together. So absolutely, right, and that's what we were talking about. It's when you're truly aligned internally yourself. You don't have to try. You just, of course, you have to put yourself out there, right, and you have to be visible, but you will attract people who are similar to you. So healed, like, aligns with healed, and you realize, like, and it's a huge thing for me, honestly, because I went through a lot of unhealed people and people who took advantage of my kindness, and that's a whole different story. But when you go into a place where you're healed and you meet people who are similar to you, it's magic, right? You guys, we just create a whole different world, and it's magic, and we co-create, and it's just wonderful. And to your point, having access to these kind of energy in the rooms, it's very important. You don't mean I never had a room like this. Right. And that's why it's very important to listen to podcasts like this. I listened to another podcast for my own. That's how I went through my healing journey. And it was just a complete different energy. It was very authentic. And I was like, this is the kind of room I want to be in. Cause that's like you, to your point, that's how you become a better version of yourself, your highest self, and you grow into the most evolved self, right? So it's very important to understand and, to Ashley's point, discern. So don't rush the healing journey. Just discern what you feel when you talk to them. What's the energy like? Right. So sometimes, I noticed on LinkedIn, especially, the DMs might be a little bit like, okay, but sometimes when you get on the call, it's different. So you want to make sure you're really getting on calls and auditing your energy and time, like Ashley said, So I'm so glad that you and I just really align on a lot of things. So, and I'm pretty sure anyone who's listening will, right? I've already gotten so many people who are like, your platform is all true and authentic, and we're not here to perform. We're just really being real and honest about our journey. And so thank you, Ashley, for everything that you've shared. And what's the legacy that you're most committed to creating in this next chapter of life?
Legacy. It's something that I pondered in the decision to take this radical sabbatical. I didn't feel that I had appropriately given time to what my legacy would be. My grandfather, as phenomenal as a man as he was really focused on education. He did finish high school. He didn't get a chance to finish college. But because of that, he poured the principles of education into all of us, which is why I probably went on to do some of the things that I did. But he would force us, Vina, quite literally, to do these reports. He would make us, they invested a lot of money in encyclopedias. They were really expensive back then. And we were going to put those encyclopedias to use. So he would say, go get an encyclopedia and tell me about somebody interesting. And I want you to report back. It was this thing that we actually did. And after we would report out in exchange for a snowball or a pizza party, whatever it was, he would ask this question that still plays in my head right now. What will people write about you? He would say, what will people write about you? I'm so excited to hear about this person, but I can't wait to hear what we're going to read about you and what people will write about you. And that is what prompted me to say, you know what? As I was going through my medical event, I could say, people would say I had done all these great things in corporate and I had broken all these glass ceilings and all those things. But what would people truly say about me?
Yeah. Yeah.
And for me, that was the reason I said, you know what? This intentional pause, this radical sabbatical will ensure that whatever the next step is, it's going to align to how I want people to write and think about me. And so for me, I want people to feel lighter when they come into my countenance. I
Nice.
want people to feel better and I want them to feel more encouraged after they've experienced me. For me, my legacy is how people experience me,
Yeah.
right? It's not about, the titles anymore, which they're good. And I say it all the time. I may go back into corporate. I may not, right?
Yeah.
Time will tell, but it's not about the attainment of things. It's about the real human experience that you create for people. It could be a stranger on the street, it could be someone as close as my children. What will my legacy be for my children? Will they experience mommy always on the phone and always on a computer and always being preoccupied by other things? Or will they remember their mom as being someone who was present and
Yeah.
who was there and who was all in and was an advocate for them? And so for me, legacy means so much more than how many assets I'm going to leave to my children when I pass away. I really want people to say the world feels a little bit more empty because this person is no longer here. And I want them to say, even though this person is no longer here, I'm a better person because
Yeah.
I met them and I experienced them. And so it's a different lens on legacy
Exactly.
altogether. But yeah, that's where I am in terms of really defining my legacy. I think I've done a good job in creating a life for my children. And they are 7 and 13 girls. So I still got a ways to go. I got to get them through college and all the things. And so I'm gonna have to certainly continue to plan for that. For me, it's really about what human experience did I create for people when they met me and when they experienced me? Was it a negative one or was it one that felt like light? I want to feel like light to people for
Yeah,
sure.
amazing. I can see it. You're right. You're already a lighthouse, and you don't need to do anything, like even on this call, I'm already lighting up. I'm excited. And, that's the experience we're having. I know you can touch a lot of amazing women's lives. I'm pretty sure whoever listening already is very much impacted very positively. And I think that's the thing, right? That we tend to forget about the bigger picture. And what's the true impact we want to have? Because titles, yeah, but then that just kind of fades at the end of the day. They're like, oh, she got the titles, but okay, whatever. But it's like that soul presence, and I call it the soul, but it's really that presence that you leave on someone. And even after years, you're like, oh my God, right? Like she said that, and she made me feel this way and seen and heard. And I think that's how it got for me when especially from my grandpa as well, because that's what he would always tell me. And he was like, at the end of the day, like he wasn't that rich, right? And he had 5 kids and got them married. And he was like, everything is like God for me, right? And if I can just be myself and, be the man I'm meant to be and just touch someone's lives, that's good enough. And you know, he was actually alive for until like 1991. And even till today, I admire him so much, and a lot of people do. And that's why I learned it from him, right? And I was taught other things, right? So you have to go into VP and this and that. But I was like, no, I think my grandpa taught me well. So I love what you said about the impact. And it's just very simple things, right? Just having you put a smile on someone's face. Even your energy is contagious, and that's enough. And that's the message I want to share is it's just be yourself, right? And if
Yes.
people are not letting you be yourself, you do not belong there, then leave. Right. Just leave. And you need to also discern and leave immediately. That is something that I was a huge lesson. I would just stay with people because of the attachment wound, right? What I mean by that is we're just so attached emotionally that I couldn't speak up. And I was like, I really need this person. But when I came from a place of like, no, um, alignment over attachment, it's not aligned to who I'm becoming. And I left it. And I was like, I know, the divine will find me my people soon. And I'm going to, like, similar to you, the radical spiral, I just rested. I was just like, okay, well, I'll focus on myself, take care of myself, treat myself really well. And here I am today. We're having this conversation. So it's very important to discern, though, and meet your people, and it will come to you, right? And these are really important things that no one really talks about. So I'm really glad that we're having this conversation of legacy because, yeah, do not, like, anyone who's listening, it's not about the book definition of legacy. You have to do so much. It's not that. It's just what footprint can you leave on someone, right? Just your presence, who you are, just be there for someone and help them if you can, right? In some just a small way. So thank you for sharing that, Ashley. My goodness, this is so exciting. I just love who you are. And thank you so much for just being present with us today. And I'd love to, read your book. Whoever's listening, please read her book. I think we're gonna probably have another conversation on this, right? So we can just keep talking about it. So, yeah, let's get into the rapid fire round. So I know it's gonna be fun. Okay. So window seat or aisle seat on a plane?
Window seat all day. I'm knocked out before the plane takes off.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm window seat. I love views, right? I'm all about travel and views, and that makes me happy and fulfilled, right? Just looking out the window. So I love that. And likewise. Okay. So a favorite city you've ever visited?
Oh my gosh, this one is near and dear to my heart. I actually have family there. I spent quite a bit of time there. New Orleans, Louisiana.
Oh,
I'm so excited. My book launch is going to be in New Orleans on July 2nd. And I cannot wait to see my family and friends. My team's coming. It's going to be such an amazing time. But girl, I love New Orleans. And Vina, you have to come to New Orleans with me at some point, girl, so we can eat all the food and enjoy
yeah,
all the festivities soon.
I will. I will. I haven't actually been to New Orleans, so I think
We're
this is
going.
the
We're
time.
going.
Yeah. Everyone said, and also part of the whole Soul Sisters told you about. One of them is from Louisiana, and her energy is like high vibing, and I was like, wow, right?
The
So
Yazoo Clay girl. Listen, the Yazoo Clay, which is the out of the Yazoo Clay is the name of my book, but it spans from Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. And so I say it's something about the energy in that clay girl.
right.
It's something about those deep South women who are just have a nurturing energy about themselves. And so you got to come down so we
Yeah,
can first eat and then get you some more good energy down there too.
amazing, amazing. I would love to. I'm all in. Wow, this is amazing. And let's see. If you could have dinner with any woman in history, who would it be?
This one is tough, Vina. I have like 15. Okay, I got to choose one. Okay. Oh, that's a hard one. Do I get to pass?
Of course.
Um, let's pass because I have 15 and I want all 15. But if I had to name one, I would love to sit down with all 15 of them, girl. Let me pass so that I don't misspeak. But there are a
Likewise,
lot of great women
likewise.
that I would love to have a open style, family style buffet with to just sit
Right.
down and talk about all the things. That is a good question, girl. I got to think
Yeah.
about that the next time.
I know. I have to think about it myself. So I was like, yeah, there's so many people I looked up to and, who really inspired me on my journey of my becoming. So I think it's just been amazing so far. So yeah, of course, pass everyone, right? And we can say it's everyone. Amazing. So Ashley, thank you for sharing your wisdom. It's so powerful, your journey and your honesty with us today. And what I appreciate most is that it gives people permission. And I think that's so important. The permission to question definitions of success they've inherited, permission to evolve beyond titles they've worked so hard to earn, right? So, permission to recognize that rest, reflection, and reinvention are not signs of weakness, they're often signs of wisdom. So, your story reminds us that true wealth isn't simply measured by what we accumulate, but it's measured by how we live, how we love, and how we lead, right? And it's just truly powerful and it's truly beautiful. And whether the life we built is actually aligned with the person we're becoming. And that's something that I keep asking myself every single day, every single week. And that's how we choose the right situations and the people and what's next for us, right? Is it really aligning to who we're becoming? And are we getting that support from those people and those situations? So, for everyone listening, I hope today's conversation inspires you to pause long enough to ask yourself a powerful question. So, are you building a life that looks successful or one that genuinely feels fulfilling? Because if you do feel fulfilled, it's a totally different, magical, powerful feeling. And you'll feel a sense of happiness that cannot be explained. And yes, maybe people won't understand it, but they don't have to. It's not for them. This is between you and the divine, right? So, and before we close, I'd love to share something exciting. As we were talking about the community of soul sisters and it's an ecosystem, we call it Sovereign Rise Global Collective, and it's actually already expanding globally and having partnerships. So, It has launched and it's invite only because we're very particular about the high vibe and the high energy of women. So you have access to amazing, incredible women. So it's really for navigating seasons of reinvention expansion. So we're bringing together high caliber leaders, women and men. And I've talked to a lot of men who are also very, very healthy, healed, and also awesome. And we're ready to blend soul and strategy together, right? Elevate your leadership, expand your visibility, and create meaningful impact alongside purpose driven visionaries. So we're already seeing incredible momentum through referrals and partnerships. So reaching out to be part of this vision as we're making this a reality. So if you feel called to join as a founding member or a collaborator, speaker, anything, love to connect with you. And thank you for joining, Ashley. Like, I don't know what to say. Like, it's just been so lovely and so exciting and so powerful. And thank you just so much for sharing your presence and your energy on Voices of Impact. I think I'd love to do more episodes with you. So, of course, everyone stay tuned. Until next time, keep leading with intention, keep redefining success on your own terms. And remember, the most powerful legacy you'll ever create is a life that reflects who you truly are and the impact that you make on